Welcome to the Solemn Vanguard channel. Today we are talking about the upcoming ban list. Now, if you know or don't know, Standard and Premium are getting a ban list or restriction list or whatever you want to call it on the 25th of February. Now, that's when they'll announce which changes are coming in like Japan. So we don't know when these changes will go in effect and when they'll go in effect in English. So it's very possible that they just announce and suddenly go all in effect at once. Or what happens usually is that it's a few weeks later before we actually get it as well. Now, so far, apart from quite some time in the past, these lists have always been the same for Japan and English. So we can kind of assume right now that whatever changes we see on the 25th are the same for English. So that begs the question, what are these changes gonna be? And now there's actually two ways to look at this. Last time we saw Bushiroad was actually pretty aggressive with the way they hit things. Usually in the past at least, we always saw, oh, here's one card we hit. Oh, here's two cards from one clan we hit. The hits were always very, very weak. Even at times where we had insane formats like Timely being super strong and stuff, it took them quite a while to fix things, and even then it was like usually slight bumps until they eventually actually murdered the whole TikTok melon stuff. But apart from that, hits have always been weak. Now, last list, we saw absolute murder. Like, not Yu-Gi-Oh! Levels of murder, but they hit so many cards in so many clans, and they even hit something before it was out in English, you know, Jamio Kongo Rine. So the question is gonna be, are they gonna go back to that style of very slight tap on the wrist on the best deck kind of hits? Or are they gonna do another one like in September where they just slaughter a bunch of decks? So for the rest of the video, we're gonna split it in two kinds of philosophies. We're gonna have the slap on the wrist and we're gonna have the murder. So for slap on the wrist, if they were to slap on the wrist in Standard right now, there would actually be no changes. Why? Because Tachi and Mura and all these very strong decks have really gone down as far as representation and topping goes once Riviere was thrown into the mix, and especially once Team Dragon's Vanity was thrown into the mix. Sure, we still see a few Murakumos popping up, a few Tachis popping up, but not in a really dominating, insane way. Narukami just came out, there's no way they'll hit that. There's also no like complaints about it yet, but Riviere just came out. So if they hit that, it will have been 1 month of fun for Riviere in English, and then they suddenly slaughter it. That's really bad for business, because you're essentially telling distributors, hey, we're already hitting something of which you still have plenty of stock left, maybe even. So if they're doing these very light bans, I can see Standard having none, even though they kind of should do something in my opinion. Now, if they actually go for the murder once again, then there's actually a lot to talk about. If they go for murder in Standard, first of all, they would be hitting Riviere. If they go for the murder philosophy, they will instantly kill something in Riviere. Whether it's Caro grade 2, maybe a choice restrict with that in Riviere, so you can no longer like endlessly cycle them with Ceza, or like instantly have loads of the restands instead of maybe only one. That would make the deck more fair, and it would kind of still save sales, since nothing is actually unplayable or banned, just choice restricted. Given that we're in the murder philosophy, I could actually see them hitting some more things. I could see them hitting Murakumo in some way, because this deck has been so good for so long, and every time it gets supported, it becomes good again. And Shirayuki is actually a pretty badly designed card, I would dare to say, because it's both offense and defense, and in a very big way. So I could see them straight up banning Shirayuki, limiting Shirayuki, choice restricting Shirayuki, but then again, if we get the new support in August yet again of Murakumo, Shirayuki could pop up again. If we see the support in August, then it's insane, and so forth. So like, Murakumo has had a really strong run, and again, we're in that murder philosophy like we saw last time. That could get hit. Another deck that we may see getting hit is Tachi. And now, as much as Tachi has never been the most insane deck before, that should not be a reason for not hitting it this time. Like right now, Tachi's big problem in my opinion is that if they go first and they open like a good hand, you can literally just die without having input. It doesn't even matter that you are a good player. You will just die because you could do nothing. There is nothing in your deck, in the game even, that pluses enough on grade 2 that you can stop Tachi from rolling and just pushing you to 6 before you even get to ride to grade 3. There is nothing you can do. It's not in your control. And that is a very feels bad kind of moment. It's really annoying to play against because you know, no matter how good you are, you cannot stop that from happening. And on the other side, the Tachi player skill isn't that relevant either in those kinds of openings. So again, assuming they're in this murderous philosophy where they're just out for blood and trying to completely reset the format, I could see Tachi getting hit. Now, Pale Moon, I don't see getting hit. It won Worlds, yes, shoutouts to Nuno, very strong player, but it doesn't really have the results beyond that in Japan for that to be hit, in my opinion. Now, assuming in Standard we see Riviere getting hit, Tachi getting hit, Mura getting hit, I don't think they'll hit much more. I don't think any other deck is really hittable. Like Pale Moon again, I don't think will be hit. Shadows doesn't have the results to be hit. Agravane doesn't have the results to be hit, even though it's like, to me at least, it's Tachi light, where if they roll, they roll. But it just doesn't happen often enough, whereas Tachi really happens quite often, to be honest. Now for Premium, if they're doing the soft slap on the wrist type of ban list, I do think they'll hit Ezel in some way. How would they hit Ezel? Well, there's quite a few ways they can. Something I see people say all the time is, oh, hit G Wonder Ezel. That is the creator of all the extra Excel circles, so that must be the problem, right? I actually don't think so. I think if you hit Wonder Ezel, the deck is still really strong, and it's fine for decks to be strong, but they still have the unfair superior ride. So just like Tachi, they can just randomly roll you out of the game before you even get to play. And again, that is very feels bad, and they've already mentioned in the past, something being fundamentally unfun to play against is something they will hit. That's why Jamio Kongo Rine was hit before there were any results for it. So given that they keep this in mind, I think even though they could or should whatever hit G Wonder Ezel, I think the superior ride should also be hit. If you only kill G Wonder, Ezel will become weaker. Absolutely. It will become a high roll deck probably. Probably. I'm not sure, but probably. Because then they will just go even harder on the superior ride. Sure, double spear exists, but you can't do that reliably enough without Wonder Ezel. Because being able to Brenius into Wonder to set up Blonde to turn your Raven life for a double spear is the only reason that you get that so consistently. Like, it's one extra layer of consistency that they then get rid of. The deck is gonna focus way harder on the superior ride then, which is exactly the problem. To me, the problem of Ezel isn't that they make many circles. Sure, it's annoying as hell, especially when they're already high rolling. Imagine you're sitting on grade 1 and they already have 3 Excel circles. That feels bad, but the only reason that feels truly bad is because they superior ride on you and you know you're gonna get like stride on while you're on grade 2 with those circles. As much as the Wonder Ezel is like problematic in a weird way, it is in my opinion not the primary culprit. The I don't get to play the game is the primary culprit, and the superior ride is essential for that. So assume that they hit just bow mains. What would happen next? I think the deck would still be very, very playable because you still again have double spear, only one of the ways to double spear is gone. You could no longer double spear with Blonde, you would only be able to double spear with Raven, which is slightly less consistent. You would still have all your Wonder shenanigans with your Platina Spear and so forth. You just would no longer have a way to instantly stride on your opponent's grade 1 or 2 just for no reason. You would now always have to use the Spear X skill to unfairly stride. But again, is that enough to make them not the best deck? I actually don't think so. On the other hand, certain decks could now punish them way harder, knowing that you won't be able to punish me for giving you damage anyway. That is a very big thing. Like, Ezel inherently does absolutely nothing until it reaches grade 3. And the reason that that's a big problem is because they can very quickly reach grade 3. So even if you go first and you bash them really hard, you know, damn, if they now superior ride into Spear X because I gave them all that damage, I'm gonna get destroyed. But if you take that away, you could maybe just bash them and not care because you know no superior ride is coming. So I don't know if just hitting Bowmains would maybe make the deck still really good, but just fair enough. I'm not sure. If you hit G Wonderezzel, I think the deck just stays toxic, but just worse. And I don't want toxic bad decks in the game. So to me, if you murder the superior ride, the deck will still be meta, but the deck just won't be unfair and infuriating. If you take away Wonderezzel, the deck will become worse, but it'll still be infuriating. Now to me, a premium slap on the wrist ban list is one where they only hit Ezzel. Because that would be just like the Time Leap days, that would be just like the Ripple days, the Seven Seas days. Every time you had like a best deck, they would just like go, oh, we hit that best deck, ban list over, look at us. That would be the slap on the wrist list, just hitting Ezzel. So let's say they go to the murder side. If they're out for blood once again, they would hit Ezzel, first of all. But instead of it just becoming a fair deck, or a good deck without the infuriating superior ride, they would straight up just murder it. So they would hit multiple cards, or they would hit the blonde, just like they did to Ichikishima. They would just take away the fundamental part of what makes that deck playable, and just say, fuck it, you don't get to play it anymore. That's a really Yu-Gi-Oh style thing to do. Now, do note, OTT ended up getting the Tsukuyomi stuff, and so then it actually is a good deck in Premium once again. But you know what I mean. The second Ichi got hit, if you own an OTT deck at that point, it was like, well, too bad. There goes your deck. So if they do something like that with Ezzel, with their murderous intent, they could hit the Wonder and the Bowmains and the Blonde and the Spear, I don't know, probably 2 of those 4, and just straight up take the deck out of existence. I don't think that's necessary. I'm very against murdering decks straight up. But hey, we're in the murder philosophy right now. Next deck in murder philosophy would be Neo Nectar. Now, Neo did not have the most amazing showing at Worlds because Ezzel is just a way better deck. It just straight up murders Neo. But take Ezzel away and suddenly Neo wins all the grade 2 games and then just beats people on first stride. It's extremely simple to play. Your opponent kind of doesn't get to play the game because you know you're going to lose the grade 2 game and you know you're going to lose the game on first stride. It's just a really dumb deck. Now that being said, it can also be beaten, you know, hit 2 or 3 heals, boom, Neo does nothing anymore, whoa. It's really, really lame though. We're in the murder philosophy. Neo also gets murdered. I don't know how though. If you ban Katrina, Neo just goes back to not much, you know, Bloom, good luck. I don't think that's really worth it. If you don't ban Katrina, Neo stays the same. Katrina is so free and does everything so easily. No matter what you hit, this deck keeps on doing the same thing. Try to think of this. Try to ban anything in the deck right now in your head. What do they hit? Maiden of Trailing Rose? Okay, then they run Arboros and maybe a few more token creators in the lower grades. Whatever, like sure, it'll hurt the deck, but not enough to matter. Katrina also makes a token, Merca makes tokens, Sylvia makes tokens, the new grade 1 makes tokens, everything makes tokens. Sure, put in some Fruit Basket Elf if you're that concerned. And Arboros, if you feel like the opponent can't kill me on their first stride anyway, ride up Arboros and suddenly you have even stronger tokens. So like, hitting Maiden of Trailing Rose doesn't do all that much. What else would you hit? Would you hit Sylvia? Yeah, it would take away something, but some people even like have lower numbers of her now. So you could run the Arboros grade 2 and then make stronger tokens with other token creators. Some people already do that. Sure, your Katrina turn gets worse because you have less token creators. What else would you hit? Now, one thing that I do see thrown around a bit, and that I think is like the best solution, is choice restricting Gladiolus with Katrina, so that you can play Gladiolus in whatever weird Neo homebrew you have, or you can play Katrina and try to make the deck really competitive. So you no longer have like the one extra attack that maybe pushes the deck over the edge. But then again, I don't think that hit actually does enough to make the deck that much worse. If anything, you're making their grade 2 game way stronger because Gladiolus is like the worst piece in the deck before turn 3-4. So I don't know how much that does. If anything, you are weakening their Cibreeze turn by hitting Gladiolus in some ways, so maybe. But really, I don't feel like hitting Gladiolus or like choice restricting them that way will do much. However, you will kind of force them to get a bit more creative, because now that they're no longer forced into making big lanes, you know, like, oh, I don't get my multi-attack anymore, maybe they will now start running cards to plus, like a water pot or anything like that instead. I just don't really feel like hitting Gladiolus murders Neo quite enough if we're in the murderous philosophy. Now next on the list would be DI. Now how do you hit the Gasti combo? Gasti is really strong, and if you get rid of Ezel and Neo, suddenly they lost the decks that could potentially out-aggro DI before DI gets to play the game. That means they have way more freedom in the way they have to build, because the hardest part about DI has always been, damn, I need to make this deck stronger than some of these aggro decks so that I actually get to play the game and get to my combo. But if you get rid of those aggro decks, they get a lot of freedom that I don't think they should have. So given that we're murdering decks right now, DI should then get hit, assuming Ezel and Neo get hit. But how? If you hit NLK, the usual combo is you putting NLK and Brewfus, and that way you have your strong 3 Vanguard swings, big rearguard attacks, and so forth. If you get rid of Brewfus, the deck gets slightly less consistent. But is that enough? I don't think so. If you get rid of NLK, then okay, the deck loses that whole combo, but couldn't they just go ham on Master of Fifth Element then? Maybe that's actually strong enough, given that we're getting rid of Neo and Ezel. Maybe just a pure Moth variant of the deck is enough to win games. Don't know. If they get rid of Assassin, your NLK combos will no longer become insane, but you could start running the Forerunner thing, I guess. So you could still do your 3 Vanguard attacks that way. So it's actually probably the hardest deck to solve. I think if you want to murder this deck, you just hit Gasti. But I disagree with that, because I think Gasti is a really interesting card. You know, it will scale well with whatever grade 3 they come out with in the future. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I'm not actually quite so sure. But yeah, that's probably like the hardest deck to hit in any way. You would have to either hit their consistency by hitting Emblem Master in some way, or you would have to hit the engine, which is NLK and Assassin. Speaking of hitting consistency, you can also hit Brewfus, or you can just murder the deck and hit Gasti. But that feels pretty bad. So those are basically the top 3 decks that I can see getting hit in Premium. Sure, there's some other decks out there, but like as long as we don't have some really strong results, I don't think they will. When we saw Premium Collection, the ban list after that in September, we suddenly saw Ange being hit, and the general population thought Ange got worse because of Premium Collection, but what people didn't know was that Ange Mine was basically unbeatable. Like, Ange Mine beat every single deck apart from Jamio Congo. So when she got hit, people were like, but why Ange Mine? So maybe there's something like an Ange Mine out there right now that we don't know of, that we will see in WGP, which will completely change the ban list. We don't know. That's the interesting thing about Premium. There's always new little interactions going on behind the scenes even, and there's so much depth to it that it's really hard to really predict what will be happening, especially when new sets are coming out and we see a new event with these new sets. With that being said, that will be all for today. Hope you found this interesting. If you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel, click the button to stay up to date, like the video if you liked the video, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I will see you soon. Ciao.